The papers landed on my hospital bed. My wife stood at the door, arms crossed, no tears. 3 days after my open-heart surgery. I looked at the documents, then at her. I said nothing. But inside my head, one thought clicked into place like a loaded gun. She has no idea what I already know. My name is Amos Keller. I am a 44-year-old forensic accountant. I find money people hide. I expose fraud for a living. I have dismantled corporations, exposed CEOs, and testified in federal court. I am very good at finding things. So when I started suspecting my wife, Rachel, 6 months before my surgery, I did not confront her. I opened a file. I started collecting. By the time she served me those papers, that file was 300 pages thick. She picked the worst possible man to betray. My chest still had staples in it when she walked out of the hospital. I watched her go. My hands were shaking, not from fear. From rage I was swallowing whole. The monitor beside me beeped faster. A nurse came in and asked if I was okay. I told her I was fine. I was not fine. My wife of 11 years had just handed me divorce papers while I was connected to an 4-drip. But I had one rule I set for myself the moment I opened that file 6 months ago. Do not move until you have everything. I had everything. I called Marcus Webb from my hospital bed. Marcus is my attorney. He is expensive, aggressive, and completely without mercy in a courtroom. I said 4 words. It's time. Do it. He knew exactly what those words meant. We had been planning this for 3 months. Every account, every asset, every hidden transaction. Marcus had the paperwork ready. He filed within the hour. By the time Rachel got home from the hospital, her credit card was already declined at the grocery store. She called me furious. I let it go to voicemail. The voicemail was 40 seconds of screaming. I played it once and saved it. Evidence. Everything Rachel did from this point forward was evidence. That was the rule. She did not know she was already standing inside a trap that had been built around her for months. She thought she was the one making the move. She thought she had the power. She had handed me divorce papers in a hospital gown. She felt untouchable. That confidence was her biggest mistake. Here is what Rachel did not know. 6 months ago, I found a wire transfer. $30,000. It left our joint investment account on a Tuesday morning while I was in a client meeting. Rachel had access to that account. She was supposed to use it only for household investments. $30,000 went to a private account I did not recognize. I ran the account number the same way I run numbers for my clients. Traced back to a man named Derek Solano. I pulled his financial history next. What I found made my blood go cold. Derek Solano was not just a man. He was a fraud. He had 2 previous aliases. He had been investigated in 2 states for investment scams targeting married women. He found lonely wives, built relationships, convinced them to funnel money, then disappeared. Rachel had been sending him money for 7 months. She thought she was in love. She was a mark. Derek had taken her for over $90,000 total across multiple transfers I uncovered one by one. Rachel had been stealing from our accounts to fund a con man's lifestyle. I did not tell her. I documented everything. I contacted one of my federal contacts quietly, an investigator I had worked with on 3 prior cases. I handed him my file on Derek Solano. He confirmed the pattern. Derek was already under informal watch. My evidence accelerated things. I became a cooperating source. In exchange, I got something valuable. A letter confirming Rachel had been a victim of fraud. That letter was a double-edged sword. It proved she was manipulated, but it also proved she hid $90,000 in marital transfers from me. Both things were true at the same time. Marcus used both truths like a scalpel. The first divorce hearing was in a downtown courtroom. For weeks after I left the hospital, I walked in slowly. My chest still ached. Rachel sat across the room with her attorney, a mid-level family lawyer named Patricia Good. Patricia looked confident. She had prepared for a standard high-asset divorce. She had no idea she was walking into a forensic dismantling. I sat down. I straightened my tie. I looked at Rachel directly. She looked away first. Patricia stood up and made her opening argument. It was polished. It hit the usual points: long marriage, shared assets, equitable distribution. She cited our joint accounts, our property, our investments. Marcus let her finish. Then he stood up, buttoned his jacket, and said, "Your Honor, before we discuss distribution, we need to discuss the $93,000 in unauthorized transfers the respondent made from marital accounts over a 7-month period." The room went quiet. Patricia stopped writing. Rachel's face went white. Marcus placed the documents on the table. Clean, organized, time-stamped, every transfer, every account number, every trace back to Derek Solano. Rachel leaned over and whispered something to Patricia. Patricia whispered back. I watched Patricia's hand tighten around her pen. She had not known. Rachel had not told her own attorney. That was the first crack. Patricia asked for a 10-minute recess. The judge granted it. Rachel walked past me on the way out. She did not look at me. Her hands were shaking now. During the recess, I sat still. Marcus leaned over and said, "She's going to try to reframe this as her being a victim of Derek." I nodded. "Let her," I said. "We're ready for that too," because I had already thought through every move Rachel could make. She could claim victim status. She could cry fraud. But the moment she did, she had to explain why she never told me, why she kept sending money, why she used a separate phone, why she lied to my face for 7 months while I was planning a surgery that could have killed me. Court resumed. Patricia did exactly what Marcus predicted. She reframed Rachel as a manipulated victim, a deceived woman, emotionally exploited. She asked for sympathy from the court. The judge listened. Then the judge looked at Marcus. Marcus stood up and introduced Exhibit 31. It was a series of text messages between Rachel and Derek. Recovered legally from a cloud backup Rachel had forgotten she had enabled on a shared tablet. In those messages, Rachel was not a confused victim. She was a willing participant. She talked about our money. She called it their future fund. Their future fund. The judge read that phrase aloud. Quietly. Just once. Patricia stopped arguing mid-sentence. The courtroom was completely silent. Rachel put her face in her hands. Not from guilt, from the realization that she had lost. That the man she underestimated had been 3 steps ahead since the beginning. I felt nothing warm. No satisfaction yet. Just focus. We were not done. There were still assets she thought were protected. She was wrong about that too. Rachel believed our primary home was jointly owned. It was not. When we bought the house 9 years ago, I structured the purchase through a family trust one had established before our marriage. My attorney at the time had advised it for asset protection purposes. Rachel had signed documents at closing without reading them carefully. She thought it was standard paperwork. It was not. The house was held entirely within the trust. The trust predated the marriage. Under state law, it was separate property. She had no claim to it. When Marcus revealed the trust documents, Patricia asked for another recess. The judge declined. Patricia's voice cracked slightly on her next sentence. Just slightly. But I heard it. Marcus heard it. The judge heard it. Patricia was a competent attorney walking into a losing battle she had not been equipped to fight. Rachel hired a family lawyer for a forensic war. That decision cost her everything. By the end of the second session, the court had frozen all remaining joint assets pending full audit. Everything was locked. Rachel had no access to anything. She called me that night. I answered this time. Her voice was low and tight. "You planned all of this," she said. It was not a question. "From the beginning," I said. "While you were filing papers in my hospital room, I already had a 300-page file on you." Silence. Then, "I was going to be fair, Rachel. If you had come to me honestly about Derek, about the money, about any of it, I would have helped you. Instead, you handed me papers while I had staples in my chest. So now we finish it this way." She hung up. I set the phone down. Derek Solano was arrested 11 days later. Federal fraud charges. 3 states. My file was part of the evidence package. His assets were seized. The $93,000 Rachel sent him was gone. Absorbed into his fraud operation, spent across multiple victims. Rachel would not recover that money. She had drained it from our accounts and handed it to a criminal. The court treated those transfers as dissipation of marital assets. That legal term meant one thing practically. It came directly out of her share. The final settlement hearing lasted 40 minutes. There was nothing left to argue. Marcus had closed every door. The house, mine, held in trust, untouchable. The primary investment accounts, offset against the dissipated $93,000. The business accounts tied to my forensic practice. Separate property, premarital in origin. Rachel walked away with her personal belongings, her car, which still had 18 months of payments on it, and a legal bill from Patricia that she could not afford. Patricia Good shook Marcus's hand afterward in the hallway. She looked tired. "I've been practicing for 16 years," she said to him quietly. "I've never walked into something this thoroughly prepared." Marcus nodded once. He is not a man who gloats. Neither am I. Gloating is for people who were not sure they would win. I was always sure. The only variable was timing. Rachel chose the timing when she walked into that hospital room. I drove home that evening, pulled into the driveway of the house she thought she would take from me, sat in the car for a moment. My chest still ached if I moved wrong. The surgery had been serious. I had spent 2 nights in the ICU wondering if I would wake up. And while I was in that bed, my wife had been planning her exit. Not out of grief, not out of fear of losing me. Out of convenience. She wanted out and she wanted the assets. She had miscalculated her opponent completely. I walked inside. The house was quiet. I poured a glass of water. I stood in the kitchen and I let myself feel it for exactly 1 minute, the weight of 11 years ending in a courthouse hallway. Then I set the glass down, opened my laptop. I had a new client file waiting. A corporation with irregular internal transfers. Someone hiding money somewhere, thinking no one would notice. They were about to find out what it feels like when someone who finds hidden things decides to look in your direction. I opened the file and got to work. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and leave a comment telling me what you thought. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to get alerts about new stories like this one. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.